Hello and welcome to today's video. I want to preface this video by saying I've been sitting on this one for a while. This pen was released last year and I got one straight away, and the moment I got it I didn't want to review it, but I thought I would, and I will try and be kind of as positive as I can. This is the pen. Those of you who are part of the, the fountain pen world here on YouTube and other platforms will know what this pen is. This is the Majohn or Moonman V60, and it is designed to look and feel and be a bit like the Omas 360. Now, I don't have an Omas 360, and I can honestly say I've never written with one. So I am evaluating this pen absolutely on its own merits, and I don't love it, and I hate doing reviews like this, but I do not love this pen, and there's a few reasons why, which I will come to. But first thing I'm going to do is show the parts and features, all that kind of stuff. We'll do a size comparison, writing sample, and then I'll talk about some of those pros and cons. Okay, so the main feature of this pen, and it's hard to sort of catch on camera in a lot of ways, is the fact that it's this sort of triangular design, which is the big design element taken from the Omas. The Omas is made with nicer materials and with a gold nib and all that kind of stuff. This is a very basic pen. Majohn Moonman is a Chinese brand that make, pretty much like quite affordable, but often previously inspired fountain pens. So yes, it's got this triangular design with sort of like slightly rounded sides. The clip is built in, and it's quite firm, but it's got sort of this quite generous sort of slope to it. So you can get it into pen cases and things like that. The cap has this silver or chrome colored band with a Greek key pattern in it. Once again, very reminiscent of Omas. And it's got Moonman written on the back. Now, what is happening with Moonman? They keep going back and forth between Moonman and Majohn, depending on model to model, make to make. But one would think that a pen made more recently would be branded with Majohn, seeing as though they're moving away from the Moonman, as far as I was led to believe. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'd love to know more information about that. Maybe I just need to do a bit more sort of research on that element of it. But it's not a brand that I have traditionally really lent towards. I think there are other brands in this market, in that sort of Chinese sort of next step up Chinese brands, things like Hongdian and Asvine, that do, in my opinion, they have a much better quality pen for the price. Anyway, the barrel then continues along in this same triangular form. You get a silver band, then you get the piston knob, and yes, it is a piston filling fountain pen, which I won't operate because it is inked, and then this sort of like triangular end there. It is a snap cap, and the snap is relatively secure, but yeah, not the nicest feeling snap cap going around. And obviously you can't do it offline. It's got to be triangle to triangle for that cap to work. The grip section is once again triangular, and there's a sort of a smallish step down onto it. It's got these very pronounced edges. Then we get another Greek key band, and then this number 6 Moonman nib, and I have it in the fine nib here, and there is the plastic feed. Now, as I said, this is a piston filling pen, so it has an inbuilt piston filling system. So you turn the knob on the end and the piston runs up and down in the pen. So when you have the nib in a bottle of ink, you turn the knob, it draws ink up. There's so many videos about this filling system from a number of different brands. I've made them, so you can see sort of how the system works. And that is the basics of the pen. Like, there's no cap liner. There's, like you can see the screw, when the light's right, you can see the screw in the end of the cap there. It's all very simple, lightish weight, and it is kind of what it is. That's the basics of the pen. Let's now do a quick size comparison. So I have it here alongside a Lamy Safari, just to put it sort of into size context, so you can sort of see how big the pen is. It's a little longer there than the Lamy Safari, in all probably about just under a centimetre longer. So it's a decent sized pen. Uncapped, it is still slightly longer there than the Lamy Safari. Now, we always talk about the Lamy Safari having that sort of triangular grip because it's got these two facets on the top and then the rounded base to allow for sort of holding the pen. This takes that triangular grip to the next sort of level. Yes, it still provides you place for your thumb and your index finger, and then, you know, for the pen to rest against your middle finger there. But it is a much sort of more pronounced triangle. And then posted, we see it comes in significantly longer there than the Lamy Safari. And the Lamy Safari is a good length pen when it is posted. So this becomes very long. And I do not recommend posting the Moonman or Majohn V60 simply because it is posting onto just that piston knob, which is very easy to turn. So I won't do it here, but it is very, very easy to turn. And then the moment you do that, you're spilling ink. So just be aware that if you wanted to post it, you are posting it onto the piston. It does post, it doesn't post very deeply, but it is, I suppose, secure, but it becomes an extremely long pen. And it's not necessarily back weighted, but it feels very long. And as I said, it's on that piston knob, so I do not recommend it. And when I have written with this pen over the last couple of months, I have written with it unposted. So what are the dimensions of the Moonman or Majohn V60? Well, it is 149 millimeters when it is capped. It's 133 when it is uncapped. So it's a decent sort of size. And it's 184 when it's posted. So as I said, very long. Around the section, it's hard to sort of measure around the section, but it's kind of around the 12 millimeter mark. But because it's got this sort of unusual shape, it doesn't feel particularly like chunky in your fingers. And around the cap is about 16 millimeters there. Now, the pen weighs 28 grams in all, 18 in the body, 10 in the cap. So you are putting a little bit of weight back on the end there. The balance isn't too bad. It's not a balance issue when it's posted, but at 18 grams and a decent length, it's a nice sort of size, at least, pen in your hand to write with when it's unposted. As I said, it is a piston filling pen. It's not a huge system, filling system, but it is what it is. Okay, let's do a writing sample now with the Moonman / Majohn V60. This is a steel fine nib, roughly number 6 size. And the ink I have in this is Diatramentis Richard Wagner. As an opera singer myself, Wagner is a very important composer to me. And when I got this pen, this was the first ink I put in it, and this is still that same fill. So that, and as I said, it's been a few months that I've had this pen inked. So that kind of goes to show sort of how little I've been writing with this pen. Now, as you can see from those, it does write quite wet, which is not a bad thing. It's probably one of the best things about this nib. Let's do some writing. Okay, so it writes consistently. It's got a decent sort of fine line. Reverse writing is okay, but we'll come back to that in just a second. Flex, it's not a soft or flexible nib, but you can get a little bit out, but what you're really doing is just laying down a ton more ink, like a ton more ink. Quick writing. Like, it mostly keeps up okay. You would have heard a few points where the nib kind of catches in the paper a little bit. Easily fixable and tunable if you wanted to invest in the quality of this pen. But as you can see, for the most part, yes, it writes relatively smoothly and wetly when it is freshly primed. And that's something I'm going to come back to in just a sec. Okay. So let's start by talking about the price of this pen. This pen retails for sort of between $35 and $45 Australian, depending on the website you purchase it from. So things like eBay, AliExpress, a few other sites kind of like that have this pen. And so it's a fairly reasonably priced pen. Like, it's not an expensive pen at all. So that's a pro. That's probably in the pro category for this pen. And it's certainly an interesting pen, and there aren't terribly many pens like this on the market, but unfortunately, there have been some great ones. So let's talk about these pros and cons. Starting with that, it is a knockoff. There's, a few little differences and things, but it is a knockoff of a very famous pen design by Omas, like an iconic pen design. And it takes a lot of guts from these Chinese-based pen companies, and not just Chinese, there are others as well, who do knockoffs of really iconic pen designs like the Lamy 2000, for instance, and put them under their own banner. Now, in saying that, one could say the same for the new version of Omas. Like, they are not the same Omas. They're different people. They're just using the same designs. And whether they've got permission, whether they've all of that kind of stuff, that's a whole other story. But I would suggest that Moonman has definitely taken the Omas 360 as its inspiration for this pen. A few things to do with the shape of this pen are also, in my opinion, cons. Firstly, a couple of things I said I'd come back to. One of them is reverse writing, obviously, changes, not that you're going to be doing this often, but it highlights a fact with this pen is that you are set to particular angles at which you can hold the pen. And because these facets on the triangular grip is so pronounced, you can't half write with it on an angle. It's got to be that or nothing. So if you have an unusual grip, this is definitely not going to be the pen for you. If you turn the pen in your hand, this isn't going to be the pen for you necessarily. Things to be aware of. Personally, and this is all my personal side of it now, I find the pen incredibly uncomfortable to use. It is, I would imagine, and from the writing I've done with it, it is more comfortable for a right-handed writer because you've got these thumb and index finger doing the majority of the guiding as a right-handed writer. You're pulling the pen across the page, whereas for a left-handed writer, I tend to use this junction here, or this bit of the knuckle of my hand, to do a lot of the guiding of the pen across the page. And these corners, they're not going to cut you, but they are sharp. They are so pronounced, more so on the grip section than on the body of the pen. And that is a problem for me. I do not like the feeling of that. I don't mind a triangular grip. I've used a lot of pens with different versions of triangular grips. This one is incredibly uncomfortable because it is so pronounced and those corners are so sharp. Other things, the clip is like just functional. It's really stiff. And it's not got like a little ball or anything on the end. It is what it is. I don't love the clip. I also find the pen dries out over time. In those few days that I will leave this pen between writing with it, I often have to prime the feed, and I did before this review, and that's why it was writing so smooth and so wet. But I shouldn't have to do that after just a few days. So there's something in the sealing of this pen that for me isn't quite holding up. I've also seen other reviews and other things online about people who have tried to take the pen apart to maintain it, and it's broken. So, things have to be maintainable. A fountain pen needs to be maintained and looked after. If you can't do that, or you don't have faith in doing that with a pen, then it kind of misses the point. So yeah, I have issues with this pen. I do not love this pen. I don't know if that was particularly clear so far. But I suppose there are a couple of good pros with this pen as well. Firstly, that price point. If you are interested in this style pen, it now makes one available at a price point that is very competitive. So that's great. It's got a piston filling system, so no converter, nothing like that, no cartridges, piston filling, which is good. Not a huge capacity, but it's great. And I will say, even with those issues of, some like a little bit scratchy writing, which you could tune out if you wanted to invest in the pen, even with those issues, I still find that the nib is probably one of the better Moonman nibs I have used recently. It's consistent enough while it's writing, it's smooth enough while it's writing, it's wet enough while it's writing. But that says more about Moonman than about this particular pen, because other Moonman nibs I've used, particularly recently, just haven't worked for me. The feedback is too much, or they're dry, you know, when you think of brands, as I said, like Asvine and Hongdian, that are doing such amazing work at a similar price point, maybe slightly more expensive, but at a similar price point to this, Moonman are just falling behind. And the fact that they keep on producing these pens that are knockoffs of iconic pens is an issue. Be original. Come up with something yourself. That's all I'm going to say. So yes, this was the Moonman V60 fountain pen. I hope you found this video to be interesting and useful. Please like and subscribe, hit the notifications button, all that kind of stuff. I would really like to know what you think of this pen if you own it. And I would also love to know, if you own this and an OMAS 360, how you feel they compare. Like, you know, everyone loves the OMAS 360, and one day I would, you know, I'd love to have one or review one, or, you know, have a look at it. But as far as this particular pen goes in its own right, it's not my favorite, unfortunately. As I said, I sat on doing this review for quite a while just because, like, I wanted it to be positive, and it just can't, like, it's just not the pen for me. It may be for you, and that's wonderful. It's just not for me. So yes, if you'd like to support this channel, I would really love to hear from you. There are many ways you can, including using the Amazon wishlist, which is linked in the video description here. So yes, until next time, enjoy your pens, enjoy writing, and I'll talk to you soon.